Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and today it's my number 16 team in my 2026 NFL Deep Dive Series, the Indianapolis Colts. That's right, we're halfway there. Play the Bon Jovi song. We are halfway there. The top half now of the NFL, and it starts with the Indianapolis Colts. Led by head coach Shane Steichen, defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo, offensive coordinator Jim Bob Cooter, all-name Hall of Fame. Added some really nice pieces in there. Really going to start to see the Sauce Gardner trade come to fruition for them. Drafted C.J. Allen, A.J. Halsey, rounding out that defense really well. Added Colby Wooden as a rotational interior defensive line piece. Arden Key off the edge. On the offensive side, lost Michael Pittman Jr. by trading him away to Pittsburgh. We're going to see if paying Alec Pierce really was the right decision. Of course, the biggest wild card, the quarterback position. Riley Leonard, Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones right now, the guy. Anthony Richardson viewed as the bust. Riley Leonard viewed as like the low ceiling, high floor, safe option maybe. We're going to get into that as the true wild card here, while you have Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Warren, these great offensive talents, and a very good offensive line led by the veteran Quentin Nelson and the emerging star left tackle Bernard Ryman. But we got to start here with the coaching staff. As per always, they're such a key component to this team in particular. So people may see this as a controversial take, but Shane Steichen's my 19th ranked head coach. Yeah, I could find 18 coaches I like better than him. Maybe not significantly better, but definitely better. I think he's done a decent job. I think that they've had some talent. I think that, the lack of quarterback development, I think, certainly works against him here. I know Anthony Richardson was a huge wild card coming in, and we'll get to that. But it doesn't seem like that key position that he was brought in to really make sense of for this organization hasn't really worked out. He's had one legitimate swing at it with Richardson, bringing in Daniel Jones last year as the safety blanket, which ended up being the starter, who he got some decent play out of. And him and Jim Bob Cooter are a tier 3 offensive coaching staff. And to Steichen's credit and how he works with Cooter is player first design. So that's why you have someone like Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson on the same team. Why that's the guy you bring in when you're trying to figure out if Anthony Richardson's the guy is because you can run a very similar offense. You design your offense around these players. It's starting at the quarterback position and then sort of work your way out to the rest of the position groups. That's where you get the big Jonathan Taylor involvement at running back. That's why you add Tyler Warren and let go Adonai Mitchell last year and Michael Pittman Jr. this past offseason. Is you have these mobile quarterbacks, so you want to give them sort of faster targets like an Alec Pierce and a Josh Downs, like fun, faster targets like that, and then give them some good tight end play with Tyler Warren, a really athletic receiving type, with Mo Alley Cox mixed in, a number of other players as well that they've mixed in over the years at the tight end position. They really kind of solidified that being the direction they were going with the last 8 months or so of moves in the weapons room in particular. But Shane Steichen's still not afraid to attack down the field. I think that's something that really surprised people early in the season last year for Indianapolis, was how much of an attacking mindset they took in the passing game in particular with Daniel Jones. And I think it kind of caught defenses off guard early in the year. It was so unexpected. I think that worked to their advantage. And then, you get some injuries in there, and then eventually it just stops working to your advantage, and then you're just cycling through quarterbacks, and you're just trying to tread water at that point. But the simplicity of the offense inevitably also ends up kind of working against them. It makes it so the job of the quarterback is very easy, but it does put a ceiling on the amount of offensive production that they can have. but it's also good for young, inexperienced quarterbacks in particular. You'd like to see it get a little bit more nuanced so it doesn't become such a predictable offense, because when you have such a heavy run game commitment the way that they do, that you want to then branch off to these explosive, aggressive plays down the field, you need to have some more nuances to the game, and the quarterback position, I think, kind of does limit them in a lot of ways. But unfortunately for Shane Steichen, barring some type of massive trade, he's kind of got to make it work with what he has, and that's why you put in a lot of the quarterback mobility features into the offense as well, with Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, very mobile quarterbacks, very effective as a running threat. So that does give your offense an extra layer that you can't really add because of the limitations of the quarterbacks as passers. It creates for a fun offense to watch when it's humming, for sure, because you get those big runs from the quarterback, you get the explosive plays from Jonathan Taylor, the downfield just dominance from Alec Pierce last year. You know, it's kind of a weird thing, a weird terminology is maybe dominance isn't the right word, but it made him a lot of money. His ability to be just a straight line, I'm going to outrun this guy, throw the ball up to me. You know, you'll see it with his catch to yards ratio that he's had the last couple of years. So they've really used him well. They didn't really ever get greatness out of Michael Pittman Jr., but I think that's why you let him go and you kind of move his responsibilities over to the tight end position with Tyler Warren and kind of add that onto his plate. And then Josh Downs is just your fun guy. So explosive plays can great after the catch. So there is a level of funness to this group as well. It's just when you get against the more sophisticated defenses is where you can see the struggle start to come in, especially as games sort of progress. Like they can start games really well, but then as better defensive coordinators and better defensive talent sort of get into their own rhythm, that's where things start to taper off. And then for the defensive side of things, I look at, for example, you look at Lou Anarumo, who's the defensive coordinator coming back for his second year. And people talk about him like he was this, like, oh, he's this great defensive mind. I've never seen it in Anarumo, to be honest. His time in Cincinnati was just horrific. Now, careful what you wish for when they fired him and brought in Al Golden, but it's still not all that great. He's a tier 4 defensive coach for me. I was sort of getting the heebie-jeebies when you were talking about him potentially being a head coach, especially the New York Giants. Being a Giants fan, I had no interest in that. Because his defenses just haven't been great. And when you don't have that, I don't understand where you're a great mind if your defense isn't playing great. Like, to me, Brian Flores is a great mind. And people have Lou Anarumo like in that class. And it's just mind-blowing. But there are features to his defense that are workable. You know, he's a very heavy 4-2 nickel. 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers working out of the nickel. Losing Kenny Moore, I think, is a significant loss considering the type of defense he likes to run. I think when he came in, having Kenny Moore there as your slot guy actually worked very well for him and what he wanted to do as a defense coordinator. Now he doesn't really have that, so now you got to sort of find another body to fulfill that role, and we'll see who ends up filling that role when we get to the defensive back room. It's also incredibly matchup-centric. Like, he will just adjust from week to week based on what matchups best favor his defense. So he's got Sauce Gardner and Travarius Ward out there, right? 2 very talented players, but sometimes you might want, them to be just playing on one side of the field for the whole game. Sometimes you might want Sauce running with one guy in particular. Sometimes you might want Ward running with one guy in particular. It's whatever best suits you for that week. So that is a nice little wrinkle there. And he focuses really hard on taking away the best playmaker on the opposing offense. It's more of we're gonna identify who their best player is. We're going to do everything we can to take them away, and then make them beat us with lesser talents. And that creates a very volatile defensive strategy. And week to week, if you can't take away that best player, or you do take away that best player and then you get picked apart on the other side of the field with some other talented players, that's where this concept loses its ground. He does a lot of pre-snap disguise, which when you run incredibly matchup centric, though, having a pre-snap disguise is a lot easier for quarterbacks to identify pre-snap what is going on. Because you kind of understand as an offense with self-scouting and just being honest with yourself, who's the most likely guy in this offense that they're going to try and be taking away in this game, and you can identify it pretty early on. So when you get those pre-snap disguise, it's kind of like, okay, well, the chances are in our favor here that this is going to, they're gonna blanket over the top here because, for example, we got JSN right now playing on the outside, and they're sort of trying to mismatch like who's actually covering him right now. We know who's been covering him. Sauce has been covering him all game. We know they're trying to take him away. Let's look somewhere else. The multiple coverages also does help in that scenario, though, being running cover 2, cover 3, cover 4, man coverage, being able to go through basically an entire, encyclopedia of different coverages does assist again with the pre-snap guys with matchup-centric strategies, at least forcing the quarterbacks to make a second decision. Like they could really be doing anything out of this to try and take away this player. So that's a little wrinkle in there that's a nice little feature. They're very situation specific, so they'll roll out personnel very much based on what the situation is. Third and short, likely is they're going to play a little bit bigger. If it's second and long, they'll play a little bit lighter. Versatility reliant. Talked about Kenny Moore. Loves having that guy that you can just put in the slot, play the corner, and maybe even put on the outside a little bit, though Kenny Moore was more of a pure slot guy. Like those safeties that can come up. They can play the deep third. They can play in the box. They can play in the slot. Lou Anarumo did do great things with Jesse Bates in Cincinnati. So there is that feature to him when he gets his hands on a good player. And I think A.J. Halsey coming over is going to be a significant addition for this defense. I think he's going to have a lot of fun using him. But overall, the coaching staff, it's uninspiring to me. I feel like it's 3 coaches where you go, like, they're fine, but they're always going to be that situation where you can find somebody better, that's somebody that's an upgrade. And that's always sort of going to be looming there, it feels. And I do wonder if Shane Steichen's trajectory as a head coach changes based upon him getting that true franchise quarterback, getting that guy that, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Matthew Stafford, Justin Herbert, getting like that in his room, in his roster, in his locker room. I wonder how much that will elevate him and how much he'll truly be able to open up what he's capable of doing. Because I think he's capable of doing a lot if he's given the opportunity to grow also as a coach. He hasn't really been given that opportunity to grow as a head coach. And so when you don't have that opportunity, it creates a scenario where they're in right now where it's almost like a hot seat scenario for Steichen, where is he going to be around for when they get this franchise quarterback finally? I think it's just a very, very... It's a very middle-of-the-pack coaching staff for what is a very middle-of-the-pack team, as you guys see from the overall ranking. Make sure to hit the subscribe button right now. Hit the subscribe and hit the thumbs up on this video so it pushes out in the algorithms, helps me grow, please, guys, we're halfway there. This is so much work. I really appreciate you guys doing that one little thing for me on top of continuing to watch this video and leaving your comments in the comment section, because now we're moving on to the actual roster. And we always start with the quarterback position, and it is an interesting group like we talked about in the top. So we yammered on about the quarterbacks during the coaching aspect, because it really is as we go through this, you're going to see this is really the deciding factor of the offense in particular. They're coming in 25th to 26 with Daniel Jones as their guy. You see Anthony Richardson there. He's not even the second best quarterback for me in terms of being a passer. I think Riley Leonard has got a little bit better on him. I'd probably prefer to see Riley Leonard in a backup situation more so than Anthony Richardson. I think Richardson's just too off the wall. He's sort of that guy that you bring in to just kind of throw chaos at the opposing defense. Like if you're just desperate and you're like, maybe we'll have a big game. Maybe something big will happen here. Maybe we got to force the ball down the field a little bit. But Riley Leonard just seems like a such more safe option as a backup here. But it is Daniel Jones, who people, you can laugh all you want. When he was with the Giants, he got a contract, and then he comes to the Colts, and he kind of did what he did with the Giants with the Colts the entire time, is that he has these moments where you go, is Daniel Jones good? Is he really good? And then he just fades away, picks up an injury and then comes back. He's not really the same guy, but he did enough pre-injury that you go like, oh my God, maybe if we just got him some more protection, maybe if we just catered the offense a little bit more to him, maybe we added a little piece here or something, we're going to unlock this out of him. Because he's all over the place. He was 13th in the league against pressure, 19th when blitzed, 16th when facing 4 or less, so when the team didn't blitz, regular pass rush. But he was 21st out of 26 when he was kept clean. So when he had time to sit there and actually process a defense, he was actually worse compared to the rest of the league than when he just got to run around and was under pressure. His pressure faults, he was right in the middle, 13th. Now, the big concern was the play action. 21st out of 26 in play action. That's got to be way better. Because teams' defenses are focusing really hard on Jonathan Taylor and making sure you take him away, playing heavier boxes. So he's got to be significantly better in play action. And especially in play action, that ties right into when he's kind of kept clean. Because that's when teams are going to be crashing in on the run. So he's going to have a lot more space, a lot more time to make a decision down the field. And he wasn't consistently doing that. He definitely wasn't doing it consistently deep down the field. He was 31st out of 42 quarterbacks. The intermediate areas, 26th out of 41. Short areas, 21st out of 23rd. So it was that taper off. And then big time throws, he was 23rd of 26, and turnover worthy plays 23rd of 26. So he wasn't really putting that ball deep down the field all that often. But when he was putting it in harm's way. So there are these things that need to be talked about with Jones, because he's not necessarily ever been known as this giant turnover machine. He certainly wasn't with the Giants in terms of interceptions. He had the fumbleitis going on significantly. But when it came to actually throwing an interception or whatever, he actually was pretty safe with the ball with Daboll. And then it was sort of the same story, though. There wasn't a lot of the big-time throws happening. It was a lot of the short and intermediate areas, working off of play action, moving the pocket around. So you'll see a lot of the same here, because that's kind of what his skill set dictates. But there was a lot more, just putting the ball in harm's way here. And I don't know if that's just coached into him to just be more aggressive, find the tighter windows, or if the play design wasn't as strong to have receivers open up, or the types of receivers he had out there just weren't creating a level of confidence for him. Because, you have Pittman, who's a little bit of a... he's not this great blow-away athlete or anything like that. He's, Josh Downs is a little, smaller slot guy, gadget guy. I guess, making the Giants comparisons for him from the year before, he had guys like Darius Slayton and Jalen Hyatt and faster guys out there, Malik Neighbors, and just less people like Pittman, where they're more like contested catch guys, not going to blow you away with great route running, just down the field threats. So the windows are going to be tighter. So throwing them with more accuracy is required, and he just wasn't executing at that. Granted, he was 11th out of 26 in adjusted completion percentage. So when he was putting the ball on target, he was putting the ball on target pretty well. And and when there's drops coming into play, like some of that's on the receivers as well, but it seems like he was either playing really, really well or he was playing really, really terribly. And that is not a good place to be with your starting quarterback, especially at this stage in his career, where obviously he was brought in as such a Band-Aid for this team. And he really was just a Band-Aid for the Giants for a long time because they just couldn't get themselves in position to take a quarterback. They couldn't get into the right quarterback class to take a quarterback over him. Like he played too well in Brian Daboll's first year, where it took him out of the quarterback race there. Ironically, the Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Richardson year. But how many more times can you say one more year for Daniel Jones? Right? Like obviously this year is kind of just that one more year for him. But it's crap or get off the pot at this point. I think we're long past that with him. Even though this is supposed to be like the quote-unquote fresh start, and it's he had that MVP start to his season. Everyone's talking about, like, is Daniel Jones going to win MVP? I don't know that that's going to come back through as somebody that's experienced him firsthand with their football team. It's par for the course. Starts strong in the new environment and then is just right back to being unreliable, headache-inducing. So this is the downfall of the whole team. You get MVP Daniel Jones from the first 4 games of the year last year, or you get in crap Daniel Jones who's playing injured and can't get the ball down the field to your highly paid wide receiver. That's the thing, you pay Alec Pierce, so how do you not give Anthony Richardson a shot at this? It's just too many question marks for me to be comfortable with making this group anything other than what it is. There's not too many quarterback rooms that I'm less fond of. So we're rolling into the weapons here, and they're smack dab in the middle. 15th to 21st, they're in that middle tier because they do have some nice pieces. They have some nice guys out here that they can use and that can be really effective. And it starts with the guy they paid. Alec Pierce comes in 79 grade. Lacking that true wide receiver 1 is going to be the thing to watch at the beginning of this year because Alec Pierce is being thrust into that role. And the one thing about Alec Pierce is that he's not somebody that operates under 10 yards down the field. He operated so little under 10 yards down the field that he didn't even register amongst 99 eligible wide receivers. But what he did register in was deep and intermediate. That's pretty much where he lived, 11 plus yards down the field. He was 5th in the intermediate areas, 11 to 19 yards. And then 20 plus yards, he was 9th out of 40. So when he was being used, when he was executing incredibly well. And that is also why you pay him, because now you sort of know you have that baseline for him of what he can be, and you want to now build on top of that. The reality is he had 83 targets, 47 catches. He had 1,000 yards on 47 catches. So again, speak about going down the field. And 188 yards after the catch. So it was a lot of just run down there and catch the ball. And it was a lot of run down there, catch the ball, and getting tackled right away. He also had 6 touchdowns. He was 10th of 97 in drops percentage, so he was pretty sure-handed out there. 64th in contested catch percentage. So, he's not the biggest guy in the world. He's not this physical. He's not got this great physical stature to him. So it's tough being a contested catch guy, especially when you're operating that deep down the field. It's a lot different than, running a hitch route and getting a ball thrown in a tight window with a defender coming down onto your back. It's more about holding the ball in there. This is adjusting to the football down the field, competing with a corner, hand fighting 20 yards down the field. That's a tough spot to be in, especially for a guy, again, of his size. Took 86% of his snaps out wide, was 27th of 99 eligible receivers against man coverage, 28th in zone. So he just hovered around there as that low end one, number 2 quality wide receiver, which is really what he is. Going into this, at least. We'll see what they can build further on top of him, if they can continue to elevate him, and if Steichen can really tap into his skill set with a quarterback who doesn't really execute more than 15 yards down the field all that often, unless you're going to make the change from Daniel Jones. You go to Josh Downs, completely different style player. 78% of his snaps, almost 79, came from the slot. So complete inverse of what you had with Alec Pierce. He was the 7th of 16 ranked wide receivers in the slot. He had a couple more catches than Pierce, but had half the amount of yards. 566. He had 4 touchdowns. He was 11th of 22 wide receivers in the short areas. Had to really expand the field to get his grades for the intermediate and deep. He didn't do that a lot. 22nd of 93 graded receivers in the intermediate areas. 26 of 106. So that's a huge expanded field to work with here. Didn't do a lot behind the line of scrimmage, which that actually really surprised me when looking at what he was doing throughout the year. You would expect a guy in this type of an offense to be used a lot in these like RPO, swing screens, smoke screen, all that kind of stuff. Get the ball in his hands and let him sort of be that little pocket hamster running around, running through guys, getting lost behind blockers and all that. You'd expect him to be used a lot more like that. He just wasn't. He averaged less than 10 yards a catch. And did, again, 144 yards after the catch. That's not a significant number for a guy of his size. I think that's got to be something that they come into the season and really look into and look about changing. 48th of 97 in drop percentage. Had a little case of the Butterfingers. And 82nd of 97 in contested catches. And it's like, man, you gotta be stronger at the point of attack. That's something that's definitely holding him back here as well. Not significantly, because he is a different type of player than Pierce, and they are graded very similarly. But based on the two different types of skill sets, it does seem like Pierce does have more of an upside than Josh Downs does. Josh Downs doesn't come across like he's capable of being better than what he's shown at this point in his career. They brought in Nick Westbrook-Akini, who's been around, it seems. Was coming from Tennessee. Gets a decent little grade. He's like a bigger slot guy, more of a physical presence, good for the blocking, run blocking. They got rookie Deion Burks, who's somebody that you gotta watch, just because they are going to be searching for like that true number 1 receiver. And if Alec Pierce just isn't that guy, I think that opens up opportunities, at least for Deion Burks, who I actually kind of liked as a prospect. He comes in with a pretty decent grade here. Some of the depth they have, Ashton Doolin, he's been around, it feels like forever. He's the kind of guy that you feel's been around the league for so long, but when you look at his age, he's probably like 24. Then you got Laquan Treadwell. He's definitely been around. That's your special teams guy. Then you get to the tight end. This is where really the star of the offense exists. That's Tyler Warren. You know, coming off of his rookie season, had a fantastic rookie season. 106 targets, 76 catches, 817 yards. He took less than 40% of his snaps as a true inline tight end. Took 43.6% of his snaps from the slot. So he did play a bigger slot role for most of the year. He was the 8th ranked tight end out of 48 against zone coverage. That's where he really lived. He was able to use his smarts, use his capabilities to sit in these empty pockets in the zone and be a real threat. He was also the number 1 tight end behind the line of scrimmage. So those tight end screens and all that they were running for him, he was executing at such a high level. Didn't do that well against man coverage, which is very surprising. You'd think that a guy with his skill set would have been ranked higher against man coverage, but he wasn't. Smack dab in the middle there of eligible tight ends in terms of the slot play, 14th. 22nd deep down the field, 14th in the intermediate area, so he worked really well in that 11 to 19 yard area, which a highly athletic receiving tight end, I feel like that's a great area for them to work in, especially in this type of offense where you really are kind of condensing the field with the RPOs, with the limitations of the quarterback. You're not going to throw these deep yawning outs, for example. You're going to keep them in this little area with stick and with, some, out and ups and all that you can get from a guy like Tyler Warren, some option routes, or allow him to be smart, allow him to identify the zones and find the weaknesses in there. Keeping on the same page with the quarterback is huge for him. But he was really a game changer for this offense in a lot of ways. He's going to be expected to be even more so this upcoming season. He's going to be expected to take an even bigger leap into that elite level tight end. That elite level tight end spot. I got eating chips before I do this. Got me all choked up here talking about Tyler Warren. He's just so good. He really is. He really is a great talent. I'm surprised he wasn't the first tight end taken, but Colson Loveland was great too. Anyway, like we talked about earlier with the coaches, you get Mo Alley Cox in there, Drew Ogletree. These tight ends are going to be even more important into this offense now with Pittman gone, and with really question marks about who's filling that role in this offense that doesn't really require that significance on the outside. Now has to be basically transferred, inside the numbers to where the hashes are, and that's where Tyler Warren, Mo Alley Cox, Drew Ogletree really come into play here. But then there's Jonathan Taylor out of the backfield. He needs to be a receiving threat as well. They need to run those play action screens to him. He needs to be an effective outlet for the quarterback who can run decent routes, be a sure-handed guy, be a run after the catch type of a player, an extension of the run game. He's going to be such an important factor of what this offense does. He certainly pays in dividends because he's my number 3 ranked running back. It's the 3rd ranked running back room here. He gets a 95 grade. Absolutely phenomenal player. When he's healthy, when he's humming, he's just so great. They brought in Seth McGowan from Kentucky to be his backup. I actually really like getting this mid-round rookie, day 3 rookie running back to come in and be a backup to these star players. Because they don't have a lot of tread on their tires, so they can come in, they're full of P and V, and they can be true change of pace backs, even if they have similar skill sets. Because they have everything to prove. They're out there. They're just going to be having fun. You can sort of throw them balls to the wall. And it allows you to be a lot more methodical with your star player. Daniel Jones comes in tier 3 boost for quarterback run. Anthony Richardson, if he was in, he actually gets a tier 1 boost. He's just a different animal altogether. Not trying to take anything away from Daniel Jones, but just to give you an idea of the disparity between the two and how that changes things. But the focus here is Jonathan Taylor, who's coming off another phenomenal season. He's had a couple real good ones. This was one of them. 131 zone carries to 187 gap carries. So this guy was well over 300 carries last year. 1,585 yards, just short of 5 yards a carry. That's elite level running. Elite level running. 18 touchdowns. He had 16 explosive runs. 84 first downs accounted for. 67 missed tackles forced. Had 2 fumbles, which you're like, oh, he fumbled it twice on 300 carries, man. Like, this is what was it? 328 carries? Was it? 318 carries? Not including his catches? Come on, man. 1,136 yards after contact. He was very, very difficult to bring down. He does it all. And having this talent with you, the ability to be a good runner with zone blocking, to be a great gap power runner, to mix the power and the speed in there, being able to hit holes with confidence, being able to make guys miss in the hole, make the guy miss in the phone booth type of a analogy. It's really invaluable to have a guy of this level, because it does create a nice floor for your offense's production. You kind of know what you're going to get minimum. The problem is that when you don't have a high-level passing game, it kind of does end up working against you a huge bit. But they've done a great job of creating an offense that at least caters to his success. And when you have this level of success as a running game, it shortens games up for you, which is advantageous for a team like this. It allows you to dictate the pace and the physicality, which is another huge thing for this type of a team. And it puts you also in a position where when you can get a lead, you can close out games very effectively. The problem that you run into is that Jonathan Taylor, the expectation that he's going to carry this whole team and to carry this whole offense, is why they sort of wallow in mediocrity. Because you need more than just this great running back to be able to execute. To be able to, he can wear out a defense, definitely. You've seen him do it time in and time again, where he'll just hit a hole over and over again, and then the one time he'll hit a cutback lane, and you can just feel the expression on the linebackers as he runs by them. And you can see almost the smoke as the DBs are trying to change direction coming out of their feet, because it's just amazingly frustrating. So you hope that he can, at some point, have his skill set used where it elevates the overall offense past where it's already been. And the only way you do that is you have a very strong running attack like this early on that you can execute in the play action game, but it really has to sell out on it a lot better than what they did last year. But when it comes to Jonathan Taylor, the prototype of what a great NFL running back can be, again, Seth McGowan, I think, is going to be a great compliment. I don't know if he's going to be used all that much, but I think when he is used, it will be impactful. You got some backups there, DJ Giddens, Ulysses Bentley the fourth, just like an all-name Hall of Fame right there. Don't know quite what they're gonna be used for, but it's a great running back group. It's a great running back group that complements each other well and sets this offense up to at least have some type of success guaranteed week to week. Now we're going to the offensive line, and yet again, another trend where you have a great little group on the offensive side. 8th to 12th in pass blocking. They're 4th in run blocking for me. They've lost some veteran players. They lost Will Fries. They've lost Ryan Kelly. They lost Braden Smith this last offseason. I think they've done a great job of replacing those guys. They had Matt Goncalves sort of in the game already last year, coming in for Will Fries. This year you get Jalen Travis starting for Braden Smith. You got Blake Freeland and Luke Tenuta as your swing tackles. Jalen Farmer, the rookie who's come in, he's going to compete for some guard snaps. with Matt Goncalves. Goncalves can play a little bit of tackle also, so there could be some sort of like almost three-way competition perhaps. If one of the two listed starters starts to struggle, then maybe Farmer finds his way in there. But I think mostly Farmer's brought in to be the understudy to what they got in Quentin Nelson, who we'll get to. We'll start with Bernhard Raimann. Solid, great left tackle. Struggled rookie year. But like most left tackles that are really good, you struggle your rookie year, it's how you bounce back. And I thought he bounced back pretty damn well. And then followed up last year with a bit of more of a down year. The passing game just wasn't what they needed it to be last year. And the offensive line did have its issues. He gave up 8 sacks. He was 31st of 62 in pressures, right down the middle. Right in the middle of all the starting tackles. 29th in hurries, 11th in hits. Didn't let the quarterback get hit all that much. But, the quarterback does play a role in that. Having a mobile quarterback does help. Helps not having a pylon back there. Took a lot of penalties also. But when you have a left tackle, they're blocking for a long time because, you don't have great quarterback play. You're maybe running a little bit more of a predictive offense. You're not getting those pre-snap calls properly to get the slides right, so you may be out of position. It might not necessarily be your fault, right? But I think Bernhard Raimann has shown that he's got the capability to elevate his game, be coachable, develop his physical traits, enhance the mental traits, understands the foot placement, understands hand placement, keeps his head on the swivel properly. Mostly good stuff. You just want to see, him pick up from some of the more downtime that he had last season. 590 pass snaps, 395 run snaps. Surprising that there was that many more, almost 200 more passing snaps than run snaps, considering the type of offense and how this offense is built. I wonder if that's not going to be much closer together in numbers next year. And it helps that he's next to an all-timer in Quentin Nelson. Comes in, gets an 86 pass grade, 92 run. He was the number 2 ranked zone guard last season, number 6 in gap. So no matter what you throw at this guy, no matter what scheme you're running, he's gonna win more times than not by a huge margin against whoever's in front of him. He was 4th in pressures allowed, only gave up 1 sack. 7th in quarterback hurries. He was 18th in quarterback hits. So it seems like every time someone did get a hurry at his expense or a pressure at his expense, they at least made contact with the quarterback. So I think that kind of works out. Didn't give up a lot of pressures or hurries. So there was just a high ratio of the defenders, when they did beat him, of them getting to the quarterback. So you'll take what you can get in that case, though. 637 pass snaps to 402 run snaps, so even a wider gap than we got from Bernhard Raimann. You just want healthy with these great players, because when you start mixing and matching and getting into this chaos of having to replace these great veterans like a Nelson, for example, you're asking for trouble, because he plays with such a great anchor. Again, the head on the swivel, being able to execute in zone and gap, knowing exactly where he needs to be, knows when to come off the double teams, knows where the double teams need to be, can anticipate when the stunts are coming from, can anticipate where blitzes are coming from the second level. Great communicator. He's a great helper with the other guys out there. He always finds work, because teams will get away from him, right? Teams will just not bother with him sometimes. And they'll run heavy. They'll run heavy to the right side of the line, and then he's sort of just in, I've got to find busy work here. So you'll see him get do the lineman pull, guard pull on pass plays, just to put him in position where he can be truly effective and they can use his skills. And then last year they put Tanner Bortolini in at center to replace the veteran Ryan Kelly, and I thought he did really well. Being thrust into that role. 75 pass grade, 83 run. I thought he did very well. He was the number 3 ranked zone blocking center, number 2 in gap. So, again, fantastic production in the run game. In the pass game, didn't give up sacks. Centers usually don't get credit for a lot of sacks. A lot of what they're doing in pass pro are double teams with a guard on like a space-eating nose tackle, for example. But he was 15th in pressures right down the middle, 14th in hurries, 28th in hits. So there were struggles there. For him, I don't think he was a complete liability at all. But he was very much middle of the pack of the centers. And that's where the 75 grade comes from. A little bit better than what I thought he would be, but not by a whole lot. I think him converting to center, because I think he came in originally as a guard. He got a couple, those first season or two, he was a guard, like a swing guard for this team. So moving over to center and being expected to just replace Ryan Kelly and being handed over the responsibilities of those pre-snap adjustments and all that, that's a learning curve. And I thought he did really well in that role. And I expect really good things and even heightened production from him this upcoming season. That left side of the line starting at him, going to Nelson and Raymond, it's very difficult to find a better offensive line, a more well-rounded offensive line group than that in the entire league. It's just the question marks on the right side of the offensive line that just come into play. And figuring out if Goncalves and Jalen Travis are the right guys for the starting roles. But it's not so much. They're not so much of a liability. They're both starting caliber, in my estimation. I think we've covered a lot of teams that have a lot worse players starting for them. It would just be nice to see one of them get that breakout season as well. I think that would really solidify this line as maybe the best in the league if they get that out of one of these guys. But it certainly has the potential to do that. And this is a group that is going to be incredibly important for the overall success of this offense. This is an offensive line that's going to have to create a lot of time in pass pro to create these opportunities to get deep down the field to guys like Alec Pierce, and a lot of run blocking to open up the game for your running quarterback, for Jonathan Taylor, and for that running game to get going and really lead this offense forward throughout the year. This is my 15th ranked offense. Number 3 in offensive coaching, 24th passing, but the number 1 rush offense in the league coming in. The combination of the line with Jonathan Taylor and the running quarterbacks, it's the best by my estimation. Now let's head over to the defensive side of the ball. Lou Anarumo's defense. Again, talked about how I'm not the biggest fan of Lou, but he's got some really nice pieces here to work with, starting here with the front 4, the defensive line. So this defensive line group, it's actually pretty deep, and it's really great against the run. I don't love them as a pass rushing group. I think, you got the aging DeForest Buckner, not quite who he used to be, and there's not really a complementary interior defensive rush from Grover Stewart, Colby Wooden, and some of these others that they have in there. And off the edge, you're kind of with Arden Key, who is this... He's a solid number 2, but you have Liatu Latu, who is a budding star. Gets a little bit better every year. Had 11 sacks last season. That put him with 14th in the league with a couple others. 19th in pressures. 16th in win rate. So that's really positive. That's a really positive growth from him in his second season. And you hope that he can continue to expand on that. Again, the worry is that the interior and the compliments and all that just aren't up to snuff. So teams will start to focus a lot more on him as a number 1, and we'll see how that affects his overall production. He was 35th of 63 in hits. He was 16th in hurries. So there was mostly that top 20 performance from him this past season, which does put him in that number 1 conversation for sure. We'll see how he can consistently apply that this upcoming season. I think it's a really positive outlook for him. Even with the run game, he brings a lot of balance to his game. I think that was the thing that made him so attractive when he was picked up, is that he sort of came in with a baseline for having good run protection performance. And then you just combine that with, now you want to expand his pass rushing tool belt, basically. Get him some more moves, let him get some more power, more finesse. He'll sprinkle a little bit of everything pass rushing wise to raise him up. But as an early down run stuffer, he's been very good as well. 22nd in missed tackle percentage, so he's right up there as a pretty sure tackler. 23rd in forced fumbles, 21st in batted balls, so his eye movement is very good while engaged with the lineman, on having that internal clock of understanding when and understanding the situation on top of that, of what is expected from a quarterback release point and where he's perhaps going to be looking to get the ball based upon what the linemen do to you. So him being able to have the knowledge to get his hands up and not just put his head down and not really be aware of his surroundings until he gets past the blocker in front of him. It's a maturity level from him that he showed. And again, in the run game, stops 23rd of 55. So he's been out there making sure that he makes smart decisions and very fundamentally sound. I guess the thing about him is that because he doesn't just leap off the page at people, it seems yet. I think this was a very quiet, good season. I mean, to be top 16, so that's like the worst of the number 1 quality, best of the number 2 quality. In those types of categories, I don't think it gets talked about enough. I think that there's just so much going on with like Myles Garrett. He kind of got lost, but I think that's a good thing for him because it takes the pressure off of him, allows him to develop at his own speed. And I think we'll see some more growth from him throughout the year. The problem is that, again, it's the lack of a complement off the edge. Like we kind of talked about. We have Arden Key, who's a good veteran little presence there, but he's not a long-term answer. I think you'd be a lot more happy with Arden Key being like this early down, like run stuffer. Like he's a very good run defender off the edge. And he's had his moments as an actual pass rusher. But I definitely like him more as a number 3, like a rotational guy in those scenarios, situational pass rusher. And like to get somebody that has much more upside to be doing the actual pass rushing for Arden Key off the edge. And you got JT Tuimalau, who was kind of stagnant in his rookie season. Michael Clemens comes over from the Jets. He's sort of just some balance to his game, but you kind of like him a little bit more to be a physical early down guy. And then they got Caden Curry from Ohio State, so maybe we'll see how he develops throughout the offseason, what kind of opportunities he gets. I think he could be somebody that could have a sneaky impact if he can actually make the team, because again, it's a very deep group to have here. There's those 5 edge rushers there are the ones I anticipate being the ones they carry over into the regular season, barring an injury. But then they have 6 interior defensive linemen that's captained really by DeForest Buckner, who's had a fantastic career. Still a relatively solid, big-bodied 3 technique. Gets into that 4-eye / sort of 3-4 defensive end type of a role. It's the length that really wows you when it comes to DeForest Buckner. He still had 4 sacks. He was still the top 25 in pressures and win percentage. 5th in hurries, didn't get a lot of hits. Very sure tackler, 14th of 121 eligible interior defensive linemen. 16th in stops. So he's still got a lot of balance to his game. It's the ticking clock at this point with him. And when you sort of lose the get off, the athleticism, the size that he has can actually kind of become a detriment. Because one of the big things that people talk about when it comes to offensive linemen versus defensive linemen, it's the getting under the pads, right? And the one who gets under the opposing lineman's pads, especially when you're working with interior linemen, that's usually the person that wins the rep. So what you worry about is that he's going to start giving up that ground a lot more, just from a natural like size and athletic regression. So some of these more aggressive, more athletic interior offensive linemen are going to be able to get that leverage advantage on him. So that'll be something to watch, I think, throughout the year is is how much can he continue to use his just towering size to his advantage truly. Because it's always been, it was a concern when he came into the league with San Francisco, but he was such a athletic freak in terms of his get off, in terms of his power, that it became a huge advantage for him having that towering size, where in other people's cases, you could see it becoming a real detriment. So as he's getting older and as he starts to regress, it'll be interesting to see if it does become that for him. I don't know how much it will. He only played 452 snaps last year. So a full, healthy veteran season. I wonder if it'll even be a full haul for him in that sense as well. That's going to be something to watch when you do have the additions of Colby Wooden, for example, who you just know is going to be involved in one way, shape, or form, because, I mean, that's why they brought him in. He sort of getting brought in to maybe take some of the weight off of the shoulders of this older rotation, because Grover Stewart, fantastic nose tackle, interior run stuffer, one of the better ones in the league still. So to get him off the field in true pass rush situations, I think will be a huge advantage for your running game. But you want to find somebody also to be this spell for DeForest Buckner. So is it Colby Wooden? Is it Jerry Tillery, who's still got a veteran presence there? Derek Natty, who I've never been a big fan of. Then there's Adeto Adebayor, who is this hybrid interior/edge player, who I guess if you want to play a little bit bigger, can be an asset for you. But it doesn't seem like he really has a fit at the pro level, at least in a 3-4 defense or in a 4-3 defense. He almost is better suited for a 3-4 defense, playing a true 3-4 defensive end role. So it'll be interesting to see how they manipulate things and work him in there, if he can even find a place. So there's a perception of depth to the group on the interior for sure. But it's just a matter of finding somebody who can be that breakout. Now, Colby Wooden, change of scenery here. He stands out as being the most likely of the ones to have that true breakout opportunity. I think he gets the third most snaps out of everyone here. And you'll see him in a bunch of different situations where then Lou Anarumo is going to be able to truly assess what his best usage for the long haul of the season as they work him in short term throughout games and throughout training camp and throughout the preseason. We'll see how that works out for them. But overall, the priority has to be to improve the pass rush, because you got enough of the bodies for the run to be a very serviceable top 10 run defense from up front. The key for this group and for this defense really is going to be what kind of pass rush can you get, because you got such great talent on the back end that we'll get to in the secondary, that you just don't want to leave those guys out to dry. You got such great talent out there that you want to have something to complement them so they can play a more aggressive style. And if you're not getting a great pass rush, at least consistently, because if Liatu Latu is the only one off the edge getting a true consistent pass rush here, offensive coordinators are just way too sophisticated, right? They'll drop a lineman into there. They'll chip him off with a tight end and then again with a running back. Like, they'll figure out a way to just completely eliminate him from the game, and then you're just playing man-on-man with the other 4 linemen. So that's got to be something to really watch here, how that defensive line coach in particular develops these guys as pass rushers, and how Lou Anarumo sets them up for success as pass rushers as well. Got to be a little more creative, I think, on this end, because Arden Key is a great athlete too. I think Liatu Latu's got a nice little combination. You got a unique set of athletic traits throughout this entire group of, 11 guys right now that I have at least listed here. Everyone's got a little bit something to offer to some degree. So put them in the right situations, open up opportunities for them. I want to see some stunts. I want to see that kind of stuff. I want to see them stack one side of the line. Maybe have Buckner playing a 4-eye and have Grover Stewart playing in the 1 tech or like a 2-eye tech in that vein on that same side, and then sort of ISO maybe an Arden Key on the one side with the one tackle and see how that works out. I want to see some of that mixed in there to try and bring out something in this group that can almost mask, scheme them into being a great pass rushing group rather than just sort of relying on individual talents. Now, the linebacking group here, it's not a highly ranked group for me. They're 27th to 28th in pass coverage, 17th to 18th in run defense. So it's not a high-end group, but it's got some interesting pieces in here. I like what they did in the draft in particular. They drafted 2 linebackers. I thought that was a really good move for them. I thought that linebacker was something they really had to address. And for them to address it the way that they did, I thought it was really great, a really great draft strategy from this group. And to get C.J. Allen from Georgia in particular, this is a great player to add. He's got very traditional linebacker qualities to be like that green dot Mike linebacker for you. He can be on the field. His coverage skills were not good last year at all. So you do have to question his liability in that sense. That's why you have an Akeem Davis-Gaither out there, who's like this smaller coverage guy, like an undersized linebacker. But from a run defending standpoint, C.J. Allen was just a great player this past season for Georgia. He had 65 tackles and 20 assisted tackles. He was 12th of 122 in missed tackles percentage. So, talk about being a sure arm tackler, proper technique, taking down all of the shapes and sizes and all that. Stops percentage, he was 13th of 179 eligible linebackers in college. So, again, just top shelf play. 6th in forced fumbles. He ain't quite Jacob Rodriguez when it comes to attacking the football when coming in for a tackle on the ball carriers, but still a very, very strong turnover creator, which is something that this group really needs. And he was 6th in pass breakups, even though he wasn't a great coverage guy. That comes from him also being incredibly aggressive, which you can coach him to be a little bit more sophisticated in the zone coverage in particular, where he did not do well. He didn't do well in man either, but he did much worse in zone coverage compared to other linebackers in college. So when you take that into account, that's where the linebackers really got to be good. You got to have a nice little baseline of at least having good zone coverage and good zone instincts. So we'll see how they coach that into him. But I expect, or at least early on in the season, him to be out there as just your downhill linebacker to use those physical run stuffing traits. While you can, in those true pass situations, you can mix in other situations. You can mix in Akeem Davis-Gaither really heavy in that scenario. And I also like Bryce Boettcher, the rookie that they drafted. I like him as being that second linebacker to be in pass coverage, where you, in those true pass sets, you can get C.J. Allen off the field and you can still have a nice, young, aggressive, hungry player out there who you can develop to be that guy moving forward. Because Allen and Boettcher, two very young talents, 2 rookies that you can really build this linebacking group around long term. And then Davis-Gaither comes in as a little bit more experienced. He's got experience in the Lou Anarumo defense from his time in Cincinnati. So he understands what is expected of the linebacker. I think Anarumo trusts him. That's why you bring him onto this squad. Is you get a guy that Anarumo can put out there. He understands the situation, understands the scheme, understands the expectations. And he can communicate this now to the rookie linebackers that you clearly bringing in, hoping to have long-term plans for, especially C.J. Allen, who I believe was their top draft pick this past draft. Didn't have a first-round pick. That was for the Sauce Gardner trade. They got Austin Ajiaki and Jalen Carlos as their depth linebackers, their special teams guys. I'm really looking at these top 3 players, the 2 rookies with Davis-Gaither, to be the leaders of this linebacking group. And the goal for this team should be to inevitably have Allen and Boettcher be probably your 2 main linebackers by the end of the season. and really be able to trust them in any and all situations. That way you can play that 4-2 the way that you really want to and not worry so much about getting destroyed in pass coverage because CJ Allen would be that high-level liability out there. But I think there's a lot of potential in this group, for sure. A lot of long-term potential. You just got to get there. You got to get the right coaching. You got to get the right... the light bulbs need to start going off. And whenever they do, I think you got a really high-end group here that in a couple years, we should hopefully be talking about this group being like a top 10 linebacking pairing. And now we're into the best group of them all. It's the defensive backs here, man. This is a fantastic group. They've been adding guys to it, like guys who have starting experience, like Cam Taylor-Britt's there. He's the fourth, perhaps even the fifth best corner on this team. And he's got starting experience going back to Cincinnati, another one of Lou Anarumo's projects from his time there. And adding him into this group that already has some really good players in here, like Mekhi Blackman got added there, I believe, last season, at some point last season, to be the number 3 corner. You got Jalen Jones as depth. You got Cameron Mitchell, who has some experience. Justin Wally, a younger player out there. He can play maybe a little bit in the slot. But you have the commitment to Sauce Gardner. And I hate to say this. I saw someone post this. They asked who the most underrated player in the NFL is. And they made an argument for it to be Sauce Gardner. Just based upon how it seems the football community, especially online, has been talking about him. And I can't agree more. He probably is now officially the most underrated player in the entire NFL. I don't know what made people think that he is trash all of a sudden. Maybe it was the fact he had no interceptions this past year. Maybe, he didn't perform all that great in zone coverage. But from a man coverage perspective, he was graded in the top 10. And that includes coming over to a system, to a new team, having to fit in with that new team. He was matched up against the best players in the league and didn't really struggle all that much. Didn't give up these huge game performances. He was targeted just 35 times, gave up 17 catches. That was the 8th best completion percentage allowed in the entire league amongst corners. He was the 2nd best corner in forced incompletion percentage. He only gave up 2 touchdowns. And he had 8 pass breakups. 49th in passer rating allowed. Maybe that's where that sort of comes from. But, he's playing on a Jets team that had clearly completely given up in a system that the head coach clearly didn't feel like he fit in. So the struggles he's having, at least perceived wise, I think that just shows how high he set the bar also from his rookie year coming out of Cincinnati. He was such a dominant rookie, and people were like, oh, well, he's been regressing since. Has he though? Because you look at the numbers he's putting up, and he's doing all this stuff against the opposing team's number 1 wide receiver all game. So to play in, I think he played 17 games. Did he play 17 games or did he play 15 games? You gotta see how many games this guy played. Should have had this written down, but my goodness. Because he only gave up 17 catches. So what is that? That's 1 catch a game from what he played? Okay, he played 11 games last year. He gave up 17 catches. So it's less than 2 catches a game he's allowing. On 3, and he was allowing 3 targets a game. On how many pass snaps? So teams are going at him at most 3 times a game and completing 1, maybe two passes against him. What are we even talking about with this? With him not being one of the top corners in the league anymore. He's still very much a top 5 corner, and I'm grading him as such. And now that he's got a full year in this Lou Anarumo system, now that they've added some of the pieces that they've added, now that he's more comfortable, now that they have a lot more of an understanding, the communication levels are high, healthy again, the sky's the limit for this guy. It really is. Like, I'm looking at a season that's just like the one he just had. Another top-level corner season. Like, it's hard to be a consistently great shutdown corner every single year and every single week, right? Like, Darrelle Revis kind of made it famous there for a bit. That sort of set the expectations for everyone somehow. But no one has come close to that 1 year that Revis had. People that talk about it was like 1.5 years that Revis was that dominant, and then he was just like a really, really great corner after that. That would have some stinkers, that would have some good games, and then would have, a great performance every now and then. But this is insane. It's insane that people are already off of the Gardner train. And then his partner is Charvarius Ward, who had a great season last year. Really, really came back to being closer to what we were used to seeing Charvarius Ward be before he had that drop-off. Obviously, he had the tragedies that happened in his life that just made football completely unimportant. And how do us up from the outside looking in judge that, right? But then last year, it seemed like he got himself back on track. He 412 snaps at outside corner. He took 19 slot snaps, so he had about 440 snaps, 430 snaps. When he was out there, 9th in man coverage, 7th in zone, so he had really good balance to his game when he did play. He was 6th in forced incompletion percentage. He had 7 pass breakups. So he gave up no touchdowns, and he was 33rd in passer rating allowed. So there's a lot here with this pairing. And Ward is such a great complement to what you have in Sauce Gardner, because now Charvarius Ward goes from being a guy who, before Gardner came in, was expected to be the number one corner, was expected to take down that number one receiver on the opposing team. And now when you have Gardner out there, Gardner's role now becomes that, to take on that number one receiver. Now you got Ward, who you can now play matchups with. You can look at the team that you're playing, and when you have Mekhi Blackmon as an option, you have Cam Taylor-Britt as an option here, you can look at Charvarius Ward and be like, okay, does he match up best against the outside wide receiver, or maybe he matches up better against the smaller wide receiver for this game? And you can mix and match what he does, and you can even mix and match what he does in a game. Never mind in the preparation. Throughout the game, you can mix and match this to really confuse the opposing defenses. And he's got great ball skills. He's got great instincts on double moves. He's got that number one quality corner mentality and skill set. It's still clearly locked in there somewhere. It's just a matter of him getting out there consistently again at this point to unlock it. And you can have the best 1-2 cornerback pairing in the league by this time next year. No doubt in my mind. And then you can mix in, of course, like we talked about, Mekhi Blackmon and Cam Taylor-Britt. When you see matchups that you really like, I think Cam Taylor-Britt's going to get a lot more play than maybe people are anticipating, knowing how deep this group is here, just because of his experience with Lou Anarumo. So maybe it's more of an early season thing as other guys maybe sort of surpass him, because I think Cam Taylor-Britt's overall top-end talent, top-end skill set is just isn't the team for him to get a lot of playing time, because there's just so many other good talents in there. Like, he doesn't really blow you away with the run protection. Like, they're all kind of the same in terms of their run protection for the most part. The only one that truly stands out in their run defending is the rookie A.J. Halsey, who they brought in, who I loved A.J. Halsey in the pre-draft process. He comes in highly graded for me out of LSU. He took 484 traditional safety snaps, 134 box snaps. So he's going to be somebody that you can use with some versatility here. And I keep going back to thinking about, you look at the coach and you look at some of the players they've had in their past. And I look at Lou Anarumo, and immediately you go to great defensive players like Jesse Bates, who, when you look at what Jesse Bates did for Cincinnati with Lou Anarumo, in terms of where he was for snaps, what his expectations were in certain situations, A.J. Halsey really fits in well into that spot. He's somebody that can come up and play the run for you. he's somebody that can get some sideline to sideline speed for you. I mean, he had 3 interceptions and 4 pass breakups last year, which were 16th and 12th respectively among safeties. He only allowed a single touchdown, credited for allowing a single touchdown, that is. 24th in passer rating allowed. 26th in forced incompletion rate. He had 66 tackles as well. Like, he was a phenomenal, well-rounded player this past season for LSU. So now you drop that into this defense and into this secondary where you have so much trust in the cornerback room that you have. Even when you have Cam Bynum out there playing a deep safety role perhaps, you can use A.J. Halsey in a number of unique ways that'll enhance what you have going up in that front 6, front 7. You can play a heavier box now with him. You can play a split safety strategy with like a cover 2 type deal. There's so much versatility now that you can have on the back end. And now I think, you've really given Lou Anarumo a nice little piece here that he's very familiar with using this type of skill set. He's got a lot of experience with this type of skill set. His defense allows this type of skill set to really shine and excel. So now you throw AJ Halsey with Cam Bynum. You also have Wanye Thomas and Jonathan Owens, who can be really good special teams guys. They've had some experience too. Jonathan Owens has been around the block a couple times at this point. But it's just this is the group that's going to drive this defense. And we talked about what we wanted out of the defensive line. This group is going to have to probably, while they figure out that pass rush, outside of Liatu Latu and to a degree DeForest Buckner on the interior, while they figure out what the identity of that pass rush is going to be, this group is going to be in charge of really holding down the fort and creating those coverage sacks. And they're really built to be able to do that. So I think the team building aspect of what they've done on this with this secondary really complements what they have going on everywhere else. And I love that they were able to pull this off, and it makes the Sauce Gardner trade make a hell of a lot more sense. It makes, losing Kenny Moore does, it is a detriment here. You're wishing you could keep him around, but you just got to find someone to sort of fill out those snaps. And you got a bunch of different guys that you brought in, in the last year and a half in particular, adding Gardner, Blackman, Cam Taylor, Britt, I think Cameron Mitchell as well in the last year and a half. Not even over the last 2 off seasons, the last off season and then midway through the regular season. It's been a very, very positive growth for this team that for a while was sort of middling there, was in that middle pack of secondary groups. And then, you add a couple pieces here and there and you've really blown up what you could be. And Lou Anarumo hasn't really ever gotten to work with a group with this much talent in it in terms of a defensive backroom either. So we'll see what he can do now with these high-level prospects and these high-level talents. So overall, it is my 18th ranked defense, tier 4 coaching, 17th pass defense, 10th ranked run defense. I'm telling you, as that pass rush develops, man, they got the back end help. This could be a dominant defense by the end of the season. Now moving into their schedule, and they are 29th in strength of schedule. A very, very favorable schedule for this team. A .465 strength of schedule. 7.5 wins from Vegas as their over-under. Hammer the over on this one, man. I was just going through their schedule, looking at those games. Those first 3 games, that's a tough start. But after that, after those first 3 games, man, they can go on one hell of a run to close out the year. The best case scenario that I have laid out for them is 14-3. Like that's a high number. And for me, the worst case scenario for them is 11-6. Just going through the math here of it all, like it's unbelievable. And then I'm predicting a 12-5 season from this team. I think that they're catching a really hard part of their schedule at the perfect time, which is those first 3 games. Those first 3 games, you get Baltimore, You're at Kansas City, and then you get your first divisional game against Houston. Those are the games where, you know what, you're going to have your offense. You're going to be figuring out your offensive strategy and where the struggles are going to be, where you can pick up some slack. On the defense, you're going to be figuring out that pass rush, figuring out that defensive line rotation, what you're comfortable with defensive line rotation-wise, what you're comfortable with in the secondary and how light you're going to play at certain situations, how heavy you want to play, where are you going to put A.J. Halsey, how you're going to use Blackman and Cam Taylor-Britt. You got 3 games into the regular season where all those questions could possibly be answered. And then you get Washington, Pittsburgh, Tennessee, Minnesota, Jacksonville, Dallas, but you get them at home. You get Miami, then you get that other game against Houston. You get the Giants at home, and then you get the bye week. So you have a real shot to go into that bye week with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 wins. Like, you can go in there with 7 wins into that bye week, and then you got 5 games left. I mean, and then you're at Philly, but then you get Tennessee, you get Cincinnati, you get Cleveland, and then you get Jacksonville to close out the year. Those are all really great matchups for you, especially late in the year. You match up well against all of these teams. Against Tennessee, Cleveland, and Jacksonville, you're going to be able to dominate in the secondary. Against Cincinnati, you're going to be able to match up incredibly well with their outside wide receivers. And by then, you just hope that you can have a pass rush to go up against an offensive line that's not all that great. This is a great schedule for this team. I'm expecting big things. So overall, they're my 16th ranked team. Their head coach comes in at number 19, offense at number 15, and the defense is ranked 18th with an amazing schedule. And there you have it. The number 16 team, the Indianapolis Colts. Thanks for making it this far, guys. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave your comments in the comment section below. I know you have been. And hit the thumbs up on this video. All this stuff will help push it out to more football fans out there to get more attention on me, because that's what it's about. I want attention. I just want subscribers. Want you guys to have a good time. Want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. And I will see you guys with the next video next time.